Hello, everybody. We're going to be talking about mid points again. And today we're going to be talking about numbers that are over 100. And so we're going to be talking about what do you do when you work with a number and it's, like 200 and 300. And we want to know what we're going to do because we're not going to be going by the tens necessarily. We might, but a lot of times when we're doing this, we're going to be using our Magic 5 rule. Now, it applies most of the time. In third grade, it's going to apply quite a bit. But remember, you got to have the same amount on both sides. And that's the key point here. So if I'm taking 200 and 300, these are my benchmark numbers. What I want to do is I want to start off by drawing that number line. And I want to put my benchmark numbers on there because I know what they are. They told me it's 200 and 300. So I put my 200 here and my 300 over here. And I want to know, what is this number in the middle? So how am I going to figure that out? Well, Mr. Wizard over here is going to help us out. Now, Mr. Wizard is explaining that the trick is to remember to count by the smaller place value to the right, or the second digit in the line of the number. So we're not talking about the number line here. We're talking about the line the numbers make. So when we look at this first one up here, if you have the number 40 as your benchmark, you're going to look at the second digit in that number. That would be the 0 here. I color in red. And that's in the ones place. So that means we're going to, as we're counting our jumps, we're going to be counting by ones. 90, again, we're going to be counting by ones. Now, what happens when we get above 90 and we're starting to talk about hundreds? Well, if we were using the hundreds, if it says using benchmarks with the hundreds, and we have to find our midpoint, we're going to look at that second digit and it's going to tell us, hey, we're going to be counting by the tens, not the ones this time. Okay, well, we had the numbers 200 and 300. So if I look at my chart here, we say we're in the hundreds, right? We look to the second digit. So I'm looking here and I can see I've got 200, and I'm going to take that number and I'm going to write it down here. And to help me figure out what I'm going to be counting by, I'm going to make my place value chart, and I'm going to label them the ones, the tens, the hundreds. Well, I'm going to look at that second digit, and that second digit, the one that comes after my hundreds, because we're counting by hundreds, it's this one right here, and that's in the tens column. That means each of my jumps is going to be 10. Each jump is worth 10. And I'm going to make 5 jumps to figure out how much it's going to be. So let's make my 5 joints, my 5 jumps here. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now each one's 10, so I'm going to count by 10. So that would be 210, 220, 230, 240, and 250. That's my middle right there, because I have 50 from here to here. If I add all those up, I get 50. Now, if I count the other side, you're going to see it's going to be the same thing again. I'm going to put my 5 jumps, right? Because 5 plus 5, remember we did that in the first video, 5 plus 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and each one's worth 10. And so 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 over here, and that gives me 50. So halfway in the red gets me to 250. There's still 50 more that I could count, but I'm not, because I only wanted to count 5 jumps, and that gets me to right here where the red and green meet, and that's 250. That's how you figure out your midpoint when you have 10 units along the line, or 10 jumps. Sometimes you're going to have some problems that aren't going to quite follow that. But the rule to remember in those cases is going to be, it has to be the same on each side. So knowing that we're going to be getting the same amount on each side, let's look at some example problems that you would see, that you would have to work. And as I put these up here, I want you to pause the video and then you can check to see what your answer is. So the first problem I have here is 70 and 80. And we want to know, what is the midpoint here? Okay, well, I'm going to take this first number 70 and I'm going to write it down. and I'm going to make that place value chart. Tens and ones. The second number, remember the second one in the line. So we got our first one here, 10, right? Our tens. Our second one is this one here. So you go ahead and make your jumps, because look, we're going to add 10 to this. So we have 10 jumps, because if we add 10, we get 80. So we're going to have 10 jumps. So you go ahead and make your 5 jumps and see what your answer is. And I'm going to, you go ahead and pause the video here, and I'll give you the answer. Okay, so our answer when we did our 5 jumps should have been, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm counting by ones, right? That's why I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this would be 71, 72, 73, 74, 75 is my midpoint. Okay? Let's try one more here. Now, I've got 100 and 200. These are numbers that are going to be bigger than that 100, so we're going to have larger jumps here. So I'm going to take that 100, and the value of each jump is going to be a little more now. I'm going to go ahead and make my place value again. Hundreds, tens, ones. The second digit in the line, 1, 2. This tells me how much each of my jumps is worth. And each one of my jumps here is worth 10, because that's the tens column. All right. Remember how many jumps we're going to make, because, you know, you go ahead and pause it. See if you can come up with the answer. Okay, so when we have 100 and 200, we're going to break it up into 10 again. I'm going to have the same amount on each side when we're done. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's make our 5 jumps. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So right here is going to be my midpoint. And then again, if I continue with my other 5 jumps, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to end up with my number in the middle. And let's see what we get. So we're counting by what? By tens. So that'd be 100. And now we're going to, each one is not going to be 1, 2, 3. It's going to be 100 plus 10 is 110. And 10 more is 110 is 120, 130, 140, 150. Our answer here was 150 is our midpoint. Okay, here's another one that's a lot like that one. The numbers are a little bigger. So let's go ahead, and you go ahead at this time and figure it out. Now, I'm not going to draw all the place value for it. I'm just going to write down the number, and you figure out what it's going to be. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at this. We've got 300, so I'm going to go ahead and start by putting my place value on here again to figure out how much my jumps are going to be. And I'm going to label them ones, tens, hundreds. I look at my second digit here because I'm in the hundreds. I'm going to be going by tens, and so it's going to be okay. It's going to be, each one's going to be worth 10. So let me go ahead and do that. 5 jumps, right? So 310, 20, 30, 40, 50. My midpoint is going to be 350 because I made 5 jumps. See? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I know that that's going to give me 350. I've got 50 over here, and I could count the other ones out, but it's going to be 350. 350 is my midpoint. All right, now the next one is a little different. It's still a number over 100, but it's a much bigger number now. But look, we got 660, 670. How much did I add? Did I add 100? If I add 100 to 660, I would have 700, because 600s plus 100s gives me 700s and 60. I don't have 760. I didn't add 100. I added 10. 660, 670. 60 and 70, I added 10 to get there. So let's look at this. I'm going to go ahead and take that 660 and I'm going to put it in my place value again. And I've got my hundreds, my tens, and my ones. Now remember, what did we add? We added 10. So we're not using the hundreds place. We're using the tens this time because we only added 10. So I come over and I look at the tens column. And then I look to the right of it, to the second digit behind that, and I go to the ones. This is why it gets tricky. This is why this is the hard one to do. This is the hardest of these to do because we're not using the hundreds. We're using tens. We got to look at the tens and then the digit that comes after it, the second digit behind it. We're not worried about this first one. So when I do that, I see I'm going to be counting by ones because I only added a grand total of 10, and now I'm going to count my 5 jumps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that would be 661, 662, 663, 664, 665 gives me the number that's halfway between 660 and 670. I've got 5 jumps over here. And then I would have to have 5 more to finish this. $66, $67, $68, $69, $70. How many jumps did I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 more jumps. So that gets me right here in the middle. 5 and 5, right? 5 jumps and 5 jumps. But really, each of these jumps is worth it's 5 and 5, so that gives me that total amount of 670 when I have 660 plus 5, 665, and 5 more would give me 670. All right, so I'm going to let you do this one. You go ahead and pause the video and solve it. See what you can do. I'm going to write down the number here. We always start with this number here, not this one. This is what we're getting to. We're starting here. 240. And now you go ahead and figure out what is the number in the middle. Go ahead and pause it if you need to. Okay, so let's look at what this was. We had 240, and I put this in my place value again. And I got my hundreds, my tens, and my ones. Now, did I add 100 here? No, I didn't add 100. If I added 100, that'd be 300. If I had one more 100, I'd have 3. So I'd have 300 and then 40 if I added one more 100. So we didn't do that. Instead, I added 10. I added 110 here, and that gave me 5. So let me show you over here what we're doing. So if I have my hundreds, my tens, and my ones over here, and I add one more 10, that gives me 250, see? And that's what I'm getting to. So I added 10. So this is tens again. Well, since we're using tens and we're not using this one over here with the hundreds, I'm going to look to the right of my tens place and see what's next door. And what's next door? The ones. So I'm going to be counting by ones again because I'm only adding 10. So here we go. I'm going to make my 5 jumps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I add 5 to 240, what do I get? 245. Well, how do I know that? Well, 240 plus 5 is 245, but I can count it too on my number line, see? 240, 241, 242, 243, 244, 245. And that's, boys and girls, how you find your midpoint for either numbers that are over 100, where you're counting by hundreds, or numbers over 100, where you're counting by tens. Remember, if you're counting by hundreds, then your groups, your jumps, are going to be 10 each. If you're counting by tens, your jumps are going to be 1 each. All righty, I hope this video helped you out. There's an assignment at the end, and good luck, and may the math be with you.